Hello my dears, and welcome back to my tiny corner of the internet. Today is a Wednesday, which means I have another book talk video for you guys. So today I thought I would talk about some short story collections. Now I think I've mentioned this before, but in my opinion one of the absolute masters of the short story is Stephen King. However, I'm not going to be mentioning any of his collections in this video. There's just so many that I thought I would dedicate its own video to that within the next few weeks. So I'm going to be looking at some other collections that are just absolute favorites of mine that really know how to throw those punches. Short stories are unique in that they have to, first of all, tell a story from beginning to end in so few pages, but also pack a real emotional punch. Otherwise, what's the point? So let's just jump right into it. The first two are actually from the same author. She's a Canadian author named Alice Munro. She has a large volume of work out. I can remember reading her in high school and throughout, and she's still releasing things, and the day they come out, I am rushing out to get it. So the first one that I want to talk about is this one called Hateship, Friendship, Courtship, Loveship, Marriage. Now, some people I know have a hard time getting into short stories. They say there's just not enough time. They don't get invested in the characters or their plights, and there's just, the emotion just isn't there for them. So anytime I hear somebody say that to me, I send them in the direction of Alice Munro, because you can't go wrong. Alice Munro writes stories that are endlessly relatable. She writes about everyday people living everyday lives, and then she slowly, subtly, deliberately peels away the layers to reveal the desperation and the rage and all the other feelings that are slowly boiling underneath the surface, just waiting to bubble over. These are not happy stories, but Munro has managed to figure out the way to write about the relationships that we have in our lives in a way that is so perfect and so relatable and so worth it. So I would definitely recommend this one. The second Munro selection that I have is called Dear Life. Oh, look, my nails almost match. But that's not what we're here to talk about. This is a fairly new release. I think it came out in 2015, I want to say. If not, then 2014. But I think 2015. And again, these stories are different from the other collection. But again, you know these people she writes about. They're not, they're not people that you can't understand. These are people you know. These are your neighbors. These are your family members. And sometimes startlingly, they're you. And she just writes with such boldness and such grace that it's astounding. Now, I find a lot of these stories tell the tales of people who are going in one direction in life, come upon an obstacle, and then find themselves going in a completely different one. Another thing I love about Alice is that she writes about aging in a way that is so beautiful. She embraces it fully, and she writes it in ways, that isn't always beautiful, but it's always real. And in that, there's beauty. So, definitely check out Alice Munro if you are looking for stories that tell the tales that will resonate within you, I think is the best way to put it. So, next up is a collection of short stories by many different authors. Many. And this one is titled, My Mistress's Sparrow is Dead. Great love stories. Now, great love stories, indeed. within this volume is every great writer you can imagine. James Joyce, Chekhov, Alice Munro actually has one in there. Now, it's not always the easiest read because, like I just said, James Joyce is in there. But it's very special. And the best thing I can say is if you like messy, painful stories about flawed people, which I do, this is the book for you. It's the kind of book that might bring you to tears. It did to me. It had me compulsively rereading some of the stories. It had me reading passages out to my husband and then watching very closely to see what kind of reaction he was having. Because you know when there's a song or a movie or a book that you love so much and you want to share it and you want to see what it's stirring in the people that you love. And this book does that over and over and over again. They're love stories, and I think somewhere I read a quote about it, like every love story is a sad story or something like that, and that rings true here. And it's beautiful, and it's raw, and it's good. So I would definitely recommend this if you can get your hands on it. Next up, we have Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is one of those authors that is just so special to me. Like, when I think of him, I want to stick him in a little jar and keep him safe. Because clearly, in my imagining, Neil Gaiman is about this big. But he's just one of those writers that is so precious as a human and as a writer. This book contains some previously published stories, as well as a very special Doctor Who story, which, if you were unaware, Neil Gaiman wrote 2 episodes, I think, of Doctor Who when Matt Smith was the Doctor. He wrote Nightmare in Silver. And then the name is escaping me, but it's the episode where the TARDIS has a human form and she is interacting with the Doctor. And I'm really disappointed that that name is escaping me. But I'll put it in the description down below. This book also has a story called Black Dog, where we revisit the world of American Gods, which, if you're a Neil Gaiman fan at all, I would probably assume that you've read American Gods. So I was very, very much looking forward to those 2 in particular, because I'd heard they would both be in there, but every story is just perfect. None had me like wishing for the end. None had me wanting to skip. And they're all great. Just Neil with his fantasy and his ghosts and his poetry, and it's all perfect. And the volume's really beautiful too. Just the art. I really like it. So, finally, please forgive me, you guys. I'm still trudging through allergy season and counting the days till spring ends. The final book in my stack of books here today is Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. Now, this book tells a bunch of, I think it's 23 very short stories, and they are told, and it's written as though it's told by a group of writers who have gone to an isolated location for a writer's retreat. So each of the stories belongs to one of the writers, and they're horrifying and they're hilarious. I love Chuck. especially when I was younger, like in my early to mid 20s, I really loved Chuck. He's very prolific. He puts out one book a year. So every year, I think it's in May, I would rush out to get it. And I haven't done that in a few years, so I've actually got a little bit of catching up to do. But back then, I really loved him. Now, Chuck is not for everyone. He's graphic and he's disturbing, but there's just something very likable within that as well. So this, I would recommend. There's some stories that are a little hard to swallow, but I loved it. And especially because I was used to Chuck in novel form. If you're not familiar, he's the writer of Fight Club, which later became, of course, a film starring Ed Norton and Brad Pitt. A little bit of trivia about this book, too, which I learned the hard way one night I was reading it in bed. Had gotten through a particularly eerie story, put it down on the table beside the bed, turned off the light, and then the cover glows in the dark. So this face glowing green in the dark is horrible. Just the worst. But it's good, and I'd recommend it, especially if you don't mind the darker side of things. It's a fun read. And finally, just to touch in on what I'm currently reading, and that is, of course, The Nest by Cynthia D'Aprix-Sweeney. In 2 weeks from today, there's going to be our book club video where I'll be talking in depth about the book, so I don't want to talk too much about it right now, but I will say that I'm really enjoying it, and if any of you are reading along with me, I hope you're enjoying it too. But yes, 2 weeks from today, I will be doing an in-depth talk, and we can dive into it and get to know the characters and the story a little more. And if you're reading, do let me know. And yeah, I guess that's about it for tonight. Oh, that isn't it. I actually wanted to tell you a little story about Chuck before we go. I think it was around 2006, 2007, I actually wrote him a letter. And he wrote back. And not only did he write back with a letter, he sent me a necklace which he had made out of beads. And so it had like stones in the middle, and then on the one side it said to Shannon, which is my name, and then on the other side he'd spelled out from Chuck. You can't beat that kind of interaction. That's just amazing. And it's something that I will never, ever, ever forget. So, there you have it. Some excellent short story collections, which you should definitely check out. And our current selection, which, if you're reading, I hope you're reading along. And if not, I hope you will read along next time when we do another book club in June. So, I hope this finds you well and that you're in the middle of a great week. And if not, I hope your week gets better. And I will talk to you all very soon. Bye, guys.